Now available in paperback and e-readers. John Haynes, 1987. Learn lessons about life and teenage love in the 1980s in this coming-of-age John Haynes story. Get your copy of John Haynes, 1987 in paperback and e-readers at Amazon.com and online booksellers everywhere. An Upper West Side super allegedly took the lives of his family in an alleged murder-suicide.
We're going to begin here tonight with breaking news on the Upper West Side, where police are investigating the deaths of a family of 4.
CBS 2's Allie Bauman live now on the scene with what we know so far. Allie?
Well, Christina Maurice, we just got new information on the scene here, and as you said, it is a disturbing investigation. Police found 4 people, a family, dead inside of their apartment here. Now, let me give you a live look at the scene. We are on West 86th Street between West End and Riverside Drive. Police were called here around 3 p.m. Now, we're told that the father in this situation, his father, so the grandfather here, tried to get a hold of his family. He came to the apartment, tried knocking on the door, could not get in, so he called 911 for a wellness check. Well, police got here and they found the 2 adults in their early 40s and their 2 kids, 2 and 1 years old, all dead inside of their apartment, all with apparent stab wounds. Now, right now, there are no signs of forced entry into the apartment, and police are not ruling out any possibilities. This could be a murder-suicide. This could be a homicide. That's what the investigators on scene are trying to figure out right now. So again, West 86th Street between West End and Riverside Drive, a developing and disturbing scene here. We'll continue to get more information and give you the very latest. For now, we're live on the Upper West Side. Allie Bauman, CBS 2 News.
Okay, Allie, thank you.
Now, in this alleged incident which took place on the Upper West Side of Manhattan in an 86th Street apartment building, 41-year-old Edison Lopez allegedly took a knife to take the life of his 40-year-old fiancée, Alexandra Wittek, and their 2 boys, Lucien, who was 3 years old, and 1-year-old Calvin, before Edison Lopez allegedly took his life. Now, according to reports, they only found out that the family was dead when the father, who was previously a super of the building, went to find out why he didn't see his son for an extended period of time, and then went to drill the door open, where he found the body of Edison Lopez's fiancée lying in the living room. Now available in paperback and e-readers. John Haynes, 1987. Learn lessons about life and teenage love in the 1980s in this coming-of-age John Haynes story. Get your copy of John Haynes, 1987 in paperback and e-readers at Amazon.com and online booksellers everywhere. Now, the police see the alleged murder-suicide that took place in Edison Lopez's apartment on the Upper West Side as an isolated incident, but when I take a critical examination of the events that allegedly took place in that Upper West Side apartment and Edison Lopez's alleged actions, they fit the pattern and profile that I talk about regarding men in crisis in my book, The Man Crisis. And it's clear to me that Edison Lopez was a man in crisis who was dealing with the pressures of change in his life, because after living in this Upper West Side apartment for many years, this was an apartment that was passed on to him from his father to him, and the job was also passed on to him from his father, who was a super before him. Edison Lopez had a hard time dealing with the changes of life that came with him starting his own family, and also the changes of looking to move out of that Upper West Side area to Westchester County, where he was looking to start a new life as a super over a condominium complex in Westchester County. Now, this should be a time of extreme joy and satisfaction for a guy like Edison Lopez. Unfortunately, he was dealing with a lot of pressures as related to change, and those pressures began to overwhelm him regarding the instability of his life. Now, Edison Lopez actually wanted to stay at that Upper West Side apartment building where his father had worked, and he had a growing family, and he wanted to get a 3-bedroom apartment to be able to have space for himself and his 2 children. However, the people in the building didn't want to give him an apartment because they thought it would be too expensive, and this is what led to Edison Lopez looking to go out here and go on a job search to go find a new job in Westchester County. Now, as Edison Lopez was looking to go out here and start that new job, he needed time to transition to make his move. However, the landlord went out here and was demanding that he wind up leaving that apartment by September 1st. Unfortunately, Edison Lopez was not ready to move because the condo board hadn't gotten his apartment ready for the apartment he was going to stay in as a super. And this is what put pressure on Edison Lopez that led to him winding up feeling like he had no real hope, even though there was plenty of hope as related to this whole situation. Now, what happened here is that we had a landlord that basically wasn't being reasonable as related to a long-term employee staying at a residence. I mean, if they were staying in that 1-bedroom apartment and they needed more time, you would think a landlord who a super was working for would be given the time to go out here and be able to finalize things as related to moving. Unfortunately, from my own experience, I can tell you that many of these landlords, they are not very reasonable, even when it comes to people who have worked for them for many years. No, many of these people wind up becoming extremely greedy as related to trying to get more rent out of someone, and because they want to eagerly go out here and get that first and last month's rent and a security deposit for an apartment, they will ruthlessly go after someone, and they will go to the point where they're going to housing court to go out here and drive a person out of an apartment because of their lust for money. And that's where they have no love for a loyal employee like Edison Lopez was, because as I see it, they could have just gone out here and resolved this whole situation by saying, hey, you've been a loyal employee to this company, your father was loyal to us, and we're going to show you respect by giving Edison Lopez 2 or 3 months to settle his affairs so that he could go and make his move to Westchester County. That's what this landlord could have done to resolve this issue. Unfortunately, because this landlord was so greedy, they wound up putting pressure on Edison Lopez that wound up taking a situation that should have been one of joy and put a man on the road to becoming a man in crisis. Because Edison Lopez, as he was looking to move his life forward, was dealing with a lot of stress and pressure as related to trying to pack up his family that had been living in this building for 41 years. And he was also dealing with the pressure of looking to try to go out here and start a new job. So this man was under tremendous pressure, and he was basically becoming overwhelmed by this pressure. And that pressure possibly got worse as this landlord was continuing to look to press to say he's got to be out by September 1st, and was possibly sending him possible threatening letters, because I know what I went through with a landlord before, and my family went through before. This landlord basically was out here sending out threatening messages, and again, this can go out here and put pressure on a man and put him on the road to becoming a man in crisis. And what happened here was that Edison Lopez possibly was dealing with all of this pressure to try to get his home situation stabilized, and because he basically saw that there was no way to stabilize his home situation, what he did was wind up acting very impulsively and emotionally, feeling like everything was hopeless. And because he felt like everything was hopeless, this is what led to him participating in this extreme act of violence of taking his life and the life of his family, because he felt overwhelmed by all of that pressure and felt overwhelmed because as he was thinking about getting ready to take on the responsibilities of actually being on his own for the first time, everything was exacerbated by the pressures to try to push him out of this apartment and push him out of a neighborhood he had lived in for many years. And that's where I see fault as related to the landlord, as related to this whole situation. They basically went out here and added fuel to a fire for a man who was basically looking at a point where he could have basically been looking to move his life forward. These people basically made it where he wound up self-destructing, and this is what happens to many men out here who don't have the proper guidance in order to know how to deal with change. Now, this Edison Lopez basically, again, he had been living in the building that his father was a super. He had been working in the building as a super like his father, and he had a good foundation in things as related to his manhood. Unfortunately, the big problem he had was he didn't know how to deal with all of the change that was going on, and he basically possibly felt like he did not have any sort of support. And because he did not feel like he had any sort of support, this is where his anxieties overwhelmed him. And as his anxieties overwhelmed him, he felt like he had no real hope of anything going right, because a lot of times when it comes to taking new jobs and making moves, what can happen is you can get delays, and these delays can wind up making a man feel like he's basically on the edge and about to snap. I know this from personal experience, because when I first got my job at the City College of New York, I had been hired in 2007. Then I get a call telling me that the job isn't going to open up until April. And that basically almost made me just fall apart. But I had to maintain my resolve, because these type of things can go out here and happen as related to jobs. You can think, oh, everything is going to go and you're going to be able to start as related to this job. But what can happen is you can wind up in a place where there are delays, and then you can wind up everything winding up getting derailed because you're looking to start things as related to your life, but then something comes and prevents you from being able to do things. And when it comes to things like having a home, again, a home represents stability and a job represents stability. And Edison Lopez possibly was, again, in a place where everything was unstable, and this is what made him anxious to the point where he was sitting there thinking, oh, I'm going to be able to move as related to things. But then the co-op wasn't ready for him, and condo wasn't ready for him, and the apartment that he was in was talking about he needed to leave. And since he felt like there was no way out of this situation where he would be able to make sure that his family was secure, what he did was look to end everything and look to end the lives of his family to keep them from suffering from being homeless as related to this period of instability. And again, this is where people need to learn to have some compassion. I mean, a little bit of compassion here from those landlords could have easily saved this man's life. A little bit of compassion and understanding could have easily led to this man not feeling in a place where he felt so hopeless. A little bit of patience and compassion could have made it where Edison Lopez could have felt like, oh, I've got some room to breathe as related to this stressful situation. A little bit of compassion by saying, hey, you can get another month or two to get your house in order, because we understand, yeah, you've worked for us for over 20 years. You've been working at the side of your father. We have respect for that man. And because we have respect for that man, we're going to cut you a bit of a break, because we don't really need that money that quick. I mean, again, people working on the Upper West Side, these are millionaires and billionaires. These people could easily just let go of maybe $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 a month in rent for 2 months. I mean, what's $10,000 to a millionaire when that $10,000 could have easily saved the lives of 4 people? That's where I see this whole situation, because we have people who are supposed to be big money, but they didn't show any humanity to a man. And because they did not show humanity to a man, this is what led to this man becoming a man in crisis, to the point where he felt suicidal, and felt suicidal to the point where he wanted to go out here and take the lives of his entire family. This is where I have an issue as related to the greed that was here. I mean, greed for money and greed to get rent on an apartment. This is where things went too far. I mean, you didn't need to go out here and put pressure on this man. I mean, you could have easily alleviated the situation by not being so cheap. I mean, what's an apartment, a 3-bedroom apartment, and the money that goes to a 3-bedroom apartment to a loyal employee who has been there for you for years? That's the critical question I gotta ask the landlords here as related to their greed. I mean, and a good employee who has been there, you should be looking to help him have a larger residence for his family so he didn't have to move too far. But it showed how little respect this landlord had for this employee, because I would think, hey, a 3-bedroom apartment is nothing compared to the loyalty and honor and respect I would give an employee. But I'm made different, and I always think that to look out for people. And when people work for you, you want to give them your very best because they're giving you their very best. So that's the way I see it. But the people here didn't really see it, and they didn't see regard or respect for this man. And that's what led to this man winding up on the road to becoming a man in crisis. And again, I know what this type of change can do to a man. It's very overwhelming and can be very anxious. And this is where a man has to learn how to navigate through his emotions. And while he has these feelings of fear and anxiety, he has to work through those feelings and not go out here and feel like everything is hopeless. That's what a man has to be able to do. Unfortunately, a lot of men, they feel like they cannot confide in anyone. They feel like they can't get support from anyone. And that's what leads to a lot of men going out here and feeling like they are in a hopeless situation when there's plenty of hope as related to this situation if people could be reasonable. I mean, I know that in the housing that there's a lot of people who think, oh, this guy's not paying his rent, I can't give him another month. But in this case, again, the super's apartment is supposed to be free. And again, if you really cared about people, you would go out here and want to take care of that person, and take care of that person in a way that lets them know they can be secure even if they're moving, because you want to make sure that you treat somebody the way you want to be treated, because the way this man was treated was reprehensible. I mean, the way this man was treated was just egregious as I see it, because you could have gone out here and helped this man, and you could have saved the lives of a family, and you could have easily prevented this man from becoming a man in crisis. Now, if you want to learn more about what leads to many men feeling frustrated and overwhelmed to the point where they feel like they have no hope, you can pick up my book, The Man Crisis, on Amazon.com in paperback and Kindle format. You can also find The Man Crisis at other online booksellers like Smashwords, the iBookstore, and Google Play. And this book has helped many men who have felt like they've had no hope get a better understanding of life, and it has helped many men break out of the cycle that leads to so many men winding up on the road to becoming men in crisis. And if you want to see me make more videos about men in crisis, you can send a donation to my Patreon, my PayPal, or my Cash App by clicking the links in the description box. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe. Now available in paperback and Kindle Unlimited, The Man Crisis. Learn why so many men are struggling to find their way in an increasingly gynocentric world in The Man Crisis. Get your copy of The Man Crisis in paperback and Kindle Unlimited today. Support Black-owned and Black-operated digital broadcast media. www.niceradionetwork.com. Nice Radio Network, broadcasting 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.